If you wanted a great multiplayer game back on the PS2, TimeSplitters 2 and TimeSplitters Future Perfect were two of the best. They were full of charm, had a great variety with the maps and modes, and the gameplay was frantic and fun. The single player was also good, but the point is that TimeSplitters is one of the great first-person shooter series. They were made by Free Radical, who were recently bought by Crytek, so now exist as Crytek UK. You may have already heard of Free Radical if you're a TimeSplitters fan or know anything about the history of Star Wars Battlefront 3. What you may not have known is that Free Radical made a game for the PS2, Xbox and GameCube in between TimeSplitters 2 and Future Perfect called Second Sight. It got pretty good reviews but didn't sell amazingly well, so has been mostly forgotten. The question is though, is it a game that deserves more attention? Free Radical did a great job with TimeSplitters, so does this game reach the same level of quality? Let's see. The story starts with a man called John Fatty waking up in a lab. He discovers he has psychic abilities but doesn't know how he got them because he also has amnesia. The game then jumps back to 6 months before, where John has been hired by the military to assist in a mission to investigate a Russian base. The rest of the game then jumps back and forth from the past and present as John discovers he can change what happened during the mission with his psychic powers through flashbacking. The story itself is decent. It presents itself in an interesting way but feels very limited by the fact that it was on the PS2. The cutscenes needed to be longer and the voice acting could have been a bit better. I also expected a better payoff to the story, but I can't complain too much as the story isn't bad. Second Sight is a third-person action game. The gameplay is split into two, action sections and stealth sections. The action sections are what you would expect. You run through levels shooting at enemies. There isn't that much to it, but the basic shooting mechanics are bad. The major problem is that the lock-on system is all over the place. You have to lock on to enemies to shoot at them, but scattered throughout levels will be explosive barrels or other objects you can lock onto. It means you will regularly lock onto an object when all you wanted to do was shoot the guy in front of you. Now you can change who you're looking at with the right analog stick, but the stick is also used to get headshots, so you have to wrestle with it before it will lock onto the correct target. There is also a cover system, but it's next to useless. You're either right behind cover or standing directly in the open, so you're always going to take a lot of damage by using the cover system. The lock-on and cover system means most gunfights come down to you running around like a headless chicken firing in all directions, which isn't very fun or engaging. A large portion of the game can be played stealthily. You can sneak around avoiding enemies and cameras, and if the alarm is raised you have to deal with reinforcements. The stealth in this game is outright horrible. The first problem is once again the controls. They are unnecessarily fiddly. Say you want to take down a guard with a headshot while in cover so you don't get seen. You have to press square to crouch, R1 to lean against the wall, L2 to lock on, up to pop out of cover, and then you have to move the right analog stick to the guy's head, hold it there, then press R2 to shoot. It might not sound too bad when I describe what the controls are, but it takes a while to get used to them, especially when you're focusing on staying hidden from enemies. Pretty much everything can be a pain to do, such as reloading. If you want to reload your weapon, you have to aim your weapon then press X, rather than just pressing X. More fluid controls would have really helped out the action and stealth in this game, as while the controls aren't game breaking, they can trip you up. The second problem with the stealth is how easily you can get spotted. There is no leniency here. If someone sees you or hears you in any way, the alarm is raised. This wouldn't be a problem if shutting off the alarm was simple, but it's a massive headache to do. In a few areas you can simply kill all the guards, and if you manage to survive then you're free to continue. In most situations though, the guards will infinitely spawn, which means you have to try and hide. This can be frustrating as the infinitely spawning guards will shoot at you, and if you don't hide well enough they will quickly find and kill you. It means the best thing to do in most situations is to just restart the checkpoint. This process of trying to stay hidden and having to restart if you're spotted is exhausting and sucks out all the fun and tension out of the game's stealth. The problem, as I mentioned earlier, is that it's just far too easy to get spotted. You don't get any sort of mini-map, so you have to track enemies yourself, but it's normally unclear where enemies are and what areas are safe to be in. The camera doesn't help out with this at all. You can switch between fixed or free, and while fixed can show you the correct path to go in, it will also block you from seeing what's in front of you. The free camera is better, but the game doesn't feel like it was designed around the free camera, so either way it's easy to miss enemy locations and to get spotted very easily. With the stealth being almost broken, it meant I usually didn't bother. It was a lot easier most times to just shoot everyone while running. As I've already mentioned though, the action isn't very good, so doing this was boring and repetitive. When the game forces you to stay hidden with infinitely spawning guards, another major flaw of this game arises. It's very easy to get lost thanks to how unclear the mission objectives can be. There are multiple times throughout the game where you need to do something very specific, but you are not told what this is. I found myself running around levels having no clue what I was supposed to do because the game never told me. I will accept that some of these times it was my own fault at me being stupid, but this wasn't true for every case. For example, there's one part where you come to a closed gate. Nothing happens when you try to open it and you can't knock it down. After I spent a while running around trying to find some sort of alternative route or to see if I've missed anything, I got annoyed and looked it up. It turns out you're supposed to climb along the edge of the wall next to the gate, but it doesn't work too well, so you have to glitch your way around a corner. The fact that the animation is a mess in this section is one thing, but for most of the game you're finding different ways to unlock doors, so you would never think to just climb around it. This sort of mentality in the level design is another reason why the stealth is flat out bad. You have to explore everywhere to try and find out exactly what you're meant to do. There's no real logic to it, you just have to hope you stumble across a computer or a button or anything else that might be useful, all the while trying to stay hidden using the bad controls, useless camera and irritating guards. Stealth games are meant to have certain logical paths you can take through the areas that you can figure out, but in Second Sight it's just a complete mess. I haven't even got to the main gimmick of the game yet, and that's the psychic powers. You can use telekinesis, turn invisible, project yourself, heal damage you've taken and fire psychic blasts. I would like to say that these powers save the game, but they don't. It's cool having all these different powers, but the level design can ruin the fun of using them. You have to use them in certain situations, but once again this isn't always clear. In fact, having all these different powers means that whenever you do get stuck, you have to try using all your different powers on everything in the environment just in case. I did like the psychic powers, but they are bogged down by all the other game's problems. Second Sight is as ambitious as it is flawed. There are a lot of good ideas here, and it's obvious that Free Radical put a lot into making this game, but it's too much of a mess. The core gameplay feels like it's built around constantly frustrating the player rather than to be entertaining. There is very little understanding of what makes a good first-person action or stealth game here. I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually beat the game. I got very close to the end, but after having to try out a forced stealth section over and over thanks to how ill thought out this game is, I decided to call it a day. With that in mind, it hardly seems fair to give it a score, so instead I'm going to reward this game a do not play out of 10. Second Sight's cool ideas are buried underneath layers of bad controls, sloppy level design and a lack of refinement.